Hello everyone, welcome to another painting tutorial, a bit of a different theme today. Today I'll be painting Dwarf Warriors from the Lord of the Rings collection. These models are used in the Middle-Earth strategy battle game. I'm going to be painting up 3 different dwarf models today. The guy with the shield you can see here, a Dwarf Warrior with a bow, and a Khazad guard. I just wanted to show the different types of colours on the different models. The biggest difference would be the Khazad guard, because I'd like to paint them slightly different just to make them stand out. These dwarves more represent the dwarves that reclaimed Moria and thereafter, so I kind of make their armour be a bit more of a black and steel look with grey uniforms and then bluey grey decorations, and that's my kind of style I go through. So first things first, before you base coat the model, but after you've glued it all together, we're going to be sorting out the base to add a little bit more texture to it. So for that we're going to be adding Vallejo thick mud, and it is a European thick mud, this one, as you can see on the bottom. For this I would use a old base coating brush, because this stuff will ruin your brush. So we'll apply that now, and then once that is dry we can base coat the model. I base coat the model with a grey colour, so it is Army Painter uniform grey that I'll be using. So now the base coat is dry on the model, so first thing we're going to be painting the armour and weapons using Citadel base lead belcher. Now for the Khazad guard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the helmet for now. I'm going to be doing that a different colour, but you might notice there's some chainmail coming off the helmet that we'll still paint lead belcher. But if it's any like plates, leave that. So we'll have a little paint of the weapons now. Also paint the shields as well. So we'll have a look at that now it's finished. So now the silvery parts of the armour are done, using a base coating brush. I'm going to be doing the Khazad guard helmet gold, and I'm going to put some gold on bits of the axe as well. For that I'm going to be using Citadel base Balthazar gold. I'm going to be using a highlighting brush just so I don't go over any of the silver details. Alternatively, if you wanted to do all your dwarves in the gold armour style, just use this style but apply it to all the armour for the rest of the dwarves. Just do it for my Khazad guard just to make them stand up, because these are the elite. So now the silvery parts of the armour are dry. Some of the dwarves you might notice there's a bit of an underlayer underneath their plate. I'm going to be doing that now, and I'm going to be doing it dryad bark just to give it a bit of a toughened leather kind of look underneath. Not all the dwarves have it, so it's just concentrate on these ones. As you can see, this archer, you can see on the arms and underneath there, we're just going to be painting that part. I hope from the photo you can see clearly what I have done. I used a precise detail brush for that step. Next step now, wait for the armour to dry, and we'll be going over all the plate areas of the armour with contrast black Templar using a highlighting brush. I use this because it really tones down the armour, it gives it a good blackened look, much better than any shade can do in my opinion. But if you don't want to do this, don't have to. But if you can bear with me, wait for it to dry, and it does give it a good little effect. I hope you can see from the photos what I'm talking about with the contrast paint being used to blacken the steel. I think it's quite a good little effect. I was used to water down some black paint, but again the ratio right for each batch of models was always difficult, so when this contrast paint came out I thought it was a bit easier for me. This paint would probably be really good for any people painting Uruk-hai warriors. Definitely think that would be good. So next step now, you might notice there's a few little studs on the plate and scale mail of the dwarves, and on the shields as well. We're going to be painting them using a precise or super detail brush. Depends how fine you want it, because you don't want to get any on the rest of the armour. And we're going to be using Citadel base Balthazar Gold again. I hope you can see clearly on the photo I just put up that the rivets are done. Only this model had rivets, and on the shields you'll find it as well. Next step now, we're going to be shading all the silver areas, so that includes the axe, chainmail, helmet and shield as well, using Nullin oil, Citadel shade. Use a shading brush for this step so you can get a good coat over everything. Try not to go over the gold areas on the other models. For that we'll be using Agrax Earthshade. As mentioned, for the golden areas on the Khazad guard, using a Citadel shade Agrax Earthshade, and I'm going to use a base coating brush just so I don't get it on any other areas. So now all the shading is dry, I'm going to be highlighting all the axes and arrow tips using Citadel layer Ironbreaker, and I'm going to be using a highlighting brush. So while that layer of Ironbreaker is drying, I'm going to finish off the golden armour by giving it an edge highlight of Auric Armour Gold, that's a Citadel layer paint, and I'm going to be using a precise detail brush for that. Now the Ironbreaker is dry, we're going to be doing an edge highlight of Runefang Steel, that's another Citadel layer, and now this is just going to go on the edges of the axes, just to make them look really sharp. We're also going to put it on the very edges of the arrowheads as well. So now that's weapons and armour done, obviously minus the shield and helmet. So now I'm going to be doing the tunic. The tunic does extend down onto the arms as well. So for the regular warriors, I'm going to be using a Citadel Mechanicus Grey, Mechanicus Standard Grey base, and I'm going to be using a highlighting brush. If you find areas a bit tricky, just go down a size, so precise detail brush. For the Khazad guards, I'm going to be doing their tunic with Citadel base Cantor Blue, just again to single them out a little bit more. So now the tunics are done on both models, we're going to be doing the shield and the helmet for the regular Dwarven Warriors using the Fang Citadel base, and I'm going to be using a mixture of a highlighting brush and a precise detail brush. You might find on some of your Dwarven Warriors there might be a sword, so I painted the sheath for the sword with the fang as well. Next step now, some of the dwarves you can make out some trousers on them, so it'll just be protruding just over the boots. The detail is a bit lacking in this area, so you'll have to try and figure out yourself where the boot ends and the trouser begins. But for the trousers I'm going to be using another Citadel base, and it's going to be Mournfang Brown, and highlighting or precise detail brush will be good for this step. Next step now, I'm going to be doing the shafts of the arrows, the axe handles and the bow. and the back of the shield with Rhinox hide. Citadel base. Again, mixture of highlighting brush and precise detail brush. So next step, now that's all done, we're going to be going over all the leather areas on the model. So that is the boots, belts, any pouches, and this is also going to be applied to the helmet of the Khazad as well. And for that we're going to be using Citadel base, Dryad bark, and again mixture of a highlighting brush and precise detail brush for this step. While waiting for that to dry, I'm going to be painting the fletching on the arrows using Citadel layer Dawnstone, and I'll be using a precise detail brush for that. So now it's time to paint the skin. Don't worry about getting paint on the beard. I'm going to be leaving the beards till last on this model, just because that's where the variation really comes in with the dwarves, and it does take up a fair bit of the model, so I just like leaving them to last. For the colour for the flesh, I'm going to be using Vallejo flat flesh. Obviously any skin colour would be good at this point. I think the Citadel colour is rat skin flesh, I'm not sure. I did have a pot, but it's dried up on me. For this step I would recommend a precise detail brush. So that's the skin areas painted. Don't worry if it looks a bit patchy, my one does. You can give it a few more layers, and there's going to be a few more touching up of the skin areas anyway. So now that's everything painted. We're going to be shading all the areas we've painted after the armour using Nulling Oil again. Even on the skin areas, these are going to be some dirty looking dwarves, as Gimli described them. You could deal with a legion of dwarves fully armoured and filthy, so we'll have a look at that now after it's all dry. The shading is dry now, so next step is we're going to be highlighting all the flesh areas using Citadel layer Kislev flesh. I'm going to be using a precise detail brush for this step. Now all the skin area is done, we're going to be highlighting all the leather pouches and gloves and the arrow shafts using Gothor Brown Citadel layer, and I'm going to be using a precise detail brush again. So now all the leather areas are highlighted. I'm going to be going over the axe handles and the bow, giving that a highlight of Doomball Brown, another Citadel layer, and again a precise detail brush, just to highlight this stage. Next I'm going to be highlighting the fletching on the arrows using Citadel layer Dawnstone, and again a precise detail brush. Now we're going to go over the flesh areas again using Citadel Colour Contrast Guilliman Flesh. I'm going to be using a highlighting brush, and make sure the skin is dry before you apply this to the skin. When the Guilliman flesh is dry, we can finally go on to the beards. Now for the beards I'm going to be using 3 different base coats for the 3 different models. I'm going to be using a Mournfang Brown base, a Steel Legion Drab base, and a Celestra Grey base. And then I'm going to be shading and highlighting these differently as well. I'll be using a highlighting brush for the base step. Just try to be careful not to go over the model, and with these Dwarf Warriors, try and find out where their beards end up, because some of them end up going behind them and tucking in their belts. So just have fun trying to locate where the beard actually ends up. Now we're going to be shading the beards. For the white beard, we're going to be shading that using Nulling Oil, and for the Steel Legion and the Mournfang Brown one, we're going to be shading it using Agrax Earthshade. Base coating brush would be good for this step, just get a good layer on there. Now the shade is dry, we're going to be highlighting the grey beard with Administratum Grey, the Mournfang Brown beard using Doomball Brown, and the Steel Legion one using Carrick Stone, and I'm going to be using a precise detail brush for this step. Now the beard is highlighted, now would be a good time to go over all the decorations in the beard and the belt buckles that may still be unpainted. So you can use 3 different colours for the decorations in the beard. You could use lead belcher for silvery colours, Balthazar gold for gold, and then if you fancying some bone decoration you can use Carrick stone. And for the belt buckles, just the lead belcher or Balthazar gold, and then work up to lighter colours if you want to give it that more of a shine. So that concludes the painting. If you want to kind of bring the beard and blend it a bit more, just give it a shade of the original shade used before the highlighting step. Now before I do the base for these models, I'm going to be spraying the Khazad guard with some Citadel Purity Seal. It's just because I find these Citadel metal models, the paint really does come off them quite easily, especially when you're playing a lot of battles with them. So that Purity Seal will just give it out a bit of a protective coat. But make sure all the paint is dry before you do that. Now the Khazad guard has been purified, I'm going to be applying some Mourn Mountain Snow to the base to give it a bit of a snow texture. Right, now the snow effect is dry, we're just going to be adding a small bit of static grass and that'll be it for the model then. And that is all 3 dwarves finished. I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. It's a nice simple technique, not too difficult to paint these ones using the steps I used, and hopefully you'll be able to get your models painted really quickly and get them from box to battlefield as quickly as possible. That's what I like to do anyway. As for the colour schemes, you don't have to copy these. I suppose the main difference is the colour of the shields and the tunic, that's where the big variation is, and of course the beards for the dwarves, since that seems to be most of the model. So yeah, if you want any more painting tutorials, please subscribe. I should be doing some more Middle-Earth strategy battle game models soon. I think I'll be doing Mirkwood Rangers and some Mirkwood Captains, and I'm going to be doing them a slightly different colour to what you're used to seeing. I'm going to be doing them in the style of Mirkwood Knights. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you've taken at least one useful piece of advice from this, or some colour scheme or technique, and hopefully you'll watch my videos next time.